Kilka tygodni temu miałem takie wystąpienie dla firmy Nokia, gdzie ewangelizowałem Bitcoina, który pomaga nam zaadresować problemy z pieniądzem, pomaga nam zbudować nową infrastrukturę pod finanse przyszłości. Być może pomaga nam również zaadresować jakieś problemy związane z nierównościami na świecie. No i prosiliście, żebym udostępnił to wystąpienie, gdy ono już będzie dostępne. Jest dostępne, więc w formie angielskiej, coś, co niektórzy z Was mieli okazję widzieć przy okazji kryptostoku, bo u Mike'a Satoshiego na kryptostoku z grubsza to była podobna treść, natomiast po polsku, no i jednak trochę mniej formalnie, no i dużo dłużej. Dla Nokii to był pierwowzór w języku angielskim, krócej, no i być może dla niektórych również jest to jakieś ciekawe uzupełnienie. Prosiliście o nie, więc wgrywam tak, jak zostało zarejestrowane. Dajcie znać w trakcie i po tego filmu, jak Wam się to podobało. Z góry przepraszam za jakieś niedoskonałości w języku angielskim, no ale mam nadzieję, że message przeszedł, ten, który chciałem przekazać w tymże wystąpieniu, więc zapraszam na krótsze, bo około 50-minutowe przemówienie Bitcoin, Missing Piece of the Internet. Jedziemy.
Bitcoin wizard known by his Twitter handle. So Andre0xa0, that's his handle, you know, like a nickname on Twitter. He's got his own YouTube channel called The Daily Dose of Discomfort, better known by its Polish name, which is totally unpronounceable to non-native speakers of Polish, Dzienna, Dawka, Dyskomfortu. Now, Andrzej spent 15 years working for a giant tech company until one day he realized that huge innovations were happening in the world of cryptocurrencies. So just like that, he left that company and focused fully on crypto and running. And he has been running crypto ultramarathons for the past 4 years. So let's hear it. Bitcoin, missing piece of the internet. Andrzej, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Welcome everyone, and let me start with the quotation from Alvin Toffler, who is an American futurist and writer, who once said that the illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I would like to stay in the spirit for the duration of this presentation. I will be talking about Bitcoin, which I discovered in 2017 when I decided to quit job at a tech company and fully focus on cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin particularly, and as you've mentioned, running ultra marathons, but that's not the subject of today's talk. And it's important to unlearn and leave like all the paradigms regarding financial system, regarding technology, just aside for a while to understand the real potential behind this technology, because I will be talking about Bitcoin as a technology. And I do realize that many of you might be thinking about Bitcoin as a speculative asset, as a bubble, especially these days when it reaches its all-time highs. But to really understand what can be done with Bitcoin, you need to think about Bitcoin as a network, Bitcoin as a tech. So with that in mind, I do believe that with this technology, we can solve some of the world's greatest problems I see around today. And that would be a problem with our monetary system, a problem with the internet, yeah, I know it's a bold statement, but maybe even problem with social inequalities. So to understand, I mean, you may disagree if we really have problem with money, internet, social inequality. So maybe let's go with through these problems one by one, and let me define the problem as I see them, and then maybe let's see if Bitcoin can handle these problems. So first, money. We use money, but rarely we realize what money really is. We don't ask ourselves this question daily. So just a reminder, it's just from Wikipedia, my money should be able to play those three functions: as a medium of exchange, as a measure of value, and as a store of value. Medium of exchange meaning that you should be able to pay with money. You should be able to exchange your money for goods and services. Measure of value, in order for the first function to be played, you should be able to measure value of stuff with money, whatever you use as a money. Same way as you measure length with a line or volume with a liter, you should be able to measure value with your money. And gold still is playing this function pretty well. On the left side of the screen, you see our current fiduciary money, which also has been playing this role for a while. And third function is for money is storing the value. So I like to call it that with sound money, with good money, you should be able to teleport value of your assets into the future. And classic example of quality suit. So one golden coin would buy you like a quality suit 100 years ago, 200 years ago. You still buy like a quality suit for 1 ounce of gold for one golden Krugerrand today, which is probably like 7,000 zlotys. So it's a very, very quality suit, I guess. And hopefully with your ounce of gold, you would be able to buy a quality suit also 10 years from now. Question is if equivalent of 1 ounce of gold, so 7 Polish zlotys, would buy you a quality suit in 2030. You can experiment with that. However, I would not recommend this experiment. I am afraid that due to inflation, maybe even not half of a suit, maybe one sleeve you'll buy with your 7,000 zlotys. I hear some noise in the background. I'm not sure if you still hear. There is a noise in the background, but anyway, at least in my ears. So I'll continue. So with 7,000 zlotys in 2030, hopefully you'll buy half of a suit. So due to the inflation, but to understand why is it so, you need to digest further. So what are the properties of money? Durability, meaning that in the process of using your money, they are not being destroyed, they still maintain the same value. Divisibility, meaning that you can split the money into smaller pieces and use it as a mean of payment as well. Fungibility, meaning that one coin equals another coin, so they have, they are not unique, they are interoperable in a sense. And portability, you should be able to take your money easily with you and pay for goods and services. Cognizability for money, you should be able to should be recognized standards. You shouldn't be forced to convince anyone accept my money. It should be clear for anyone that's money, whether it's gold or zlotys or dollars. And finally, scarcity, which is the money should be rare, should have a limited supply. And humans have been experimenting with various items over the course of the history. So we've been using shells, even bananas, whale's teeth, corn, and corn actually, I think in deep Mexico is still used in some communities as money, and obviously gold. And for various reasons, I mean, we haven't been using sand as a money, right? Because it's not scarce. And banana is also not very durable. You cannot divide the whale's teeth well into pieces. So those experiments, these items which you see on the screen as a money, they've been playing the role in smaller communities pretty well. But on a large scale, we've actually adopted this bank notes as a money because it's portable. It used to be scarce. It was durable. I mean, they have been replaced if destroyed, etc. It's easily portable. So money have been pegged to gold for some time, but as of 1971, President Nixon decided to temporarily suspend the convertibility of US dollars into gold. And this temporary state is kind of till today, by the way. But maybe one day this will change, we'll see. So money, as of that time, is in the ownership of central banks. I mean, central banks are central authority who are allowed to print money. They are buying national debt in return, so governments issue the debt and central banks print money. They kind of control the money supply, which have been working pretty well. So controlling monetary system, you can control the economy, you can influence various things you want to happen or don't want to happen in the economy. So this would be, pretty well played function. So we have this modern monetary theory in play as of 1971, you may say, where our current money, we call it fiduciary money, or fiat money, are not pegged to anything, but they are in control of central authority. So what's the problem with that? I mean, as of the time when gold is no longer kind of pegged to our zlotys or dollars, etc., it's easy to print more money because it doesn't cost you anything. So what's happening right now, and just let's have a look on this red line, which is the Central Bank of the United States Federal Reserve global circulation of the US dollar, a kind of monetary base on the US dollar. And it used to be like $1 trillion before 2008 in circulation. So all the money in the circulation, US dollars, was 1 trillion. 1 trillion is, by the way, 1,000 of billions of dollars. So it's pretty a lot. And as a response to the real estate crisis in the United States, which rolled out to the whole economy, and obviously we need to save the world, central banks started to print like crazy. So as you can see, the Federal Reserve increased the monetary supply from 1 trillion to like 2 trillion a few years later. In 2015, like 4 trillions. And then we have this like a beautiful recent famous virus crisis, which triggered the central banks to print even more money. Obviously, governments issuing the debt and central banks buying this debt for the money which they've printed. And Federal Reserve and the US economy, we have right now $8 trillion in circulation, comparing to, reminding, 1 trillion 13 years ago. Same is true for European Central Bank, Bank of Japan, and Public Bank of China. All the major central banks are printing like crazy just to save the world, just to mitigate the results of the crises we have in the world. What's the problem with that? I mean, more money should be good, right? But the economy didn't grow that much. So US economy didn't grow 8 times over the course of 13 years. So it is causing inflation. It is causing inflation, which you already see in Poland, in US, and all the major economies, because money is not scarce anymore. I mean, it starts to become like a sand. You can have like as much money as you want. Just print the button and here you go. So my take is that current money as we know it is not playing a good role because of this scarcity. feature which is not existent anymore. It's not scarce. So to the point, can Bitcoin be a good replacement? To understand Bitcoin, and I would like to become a bit more technical. I hope you can follow me, but I will take some shortcuts to explain Bitcoin relatively simply. So there will be some metaphors, and hopefully you can follow me. So imagine a round table, 8 people sitting at this table, and so let's sit as a team sitting at this table. And every one of us has like one sheet of paper, and we try to note down of these papers facts from the reality as we observe it, important major transactions happening in the real world, which are observed by us. And every one of us is doing this separately. So let's say Marek sells his real estate to Agnieszka for 1 million zlotys. So every person at this table would write down that Marek transferred real estate to Agnieszka, and Agnieszka transferred 1 million zlotych to Marek. So they have exactly the same story on their sheet of papers, and they're comparing these notes. Their notes are like a global ledger. It's like a single source of truth. So they're comparing their notes, making sure that they have the same version of the story, right? Nobody's trying to cheat that, because this will be used by other people for some purpose. So they will be comparing their notes, and let's say that Marek wanted to bribe one of these people and override the history, saying that he never did transfer his real estate to Agnieszka, but he still wants this 1 million, right? So the rest of the group, they are constantly synchronizing, they're comparing their notes. If somebody is cheating, if somebody at the table is a bad actor, he'll be kicked out from the table. And new people will come because there is an incentive mechanism which is attracting more people to this table. So bad actors are excluded from the table. And even if somebody, let's say I would like to take, I am part of the table and I would like to take Marek's real estate for me. I'd like to steal it. So I can just cheat, right? I can write different version of the story on my paper. But again, people will detect this and I will be kicked out from the table. So actually you would need 5 out of this 8 people to collude or to be hacked or to be kind of frightened this or other way in order to attack the network and rewrite this history. So like majority of these people to collude, and this would have to go for some time in order to rewrite the history. So may say it's not that difficult, right? But right now let's take it to the Bitcoin level. So these folks, they are in Bitcoin network, they are the nodes, they are the machines in the network. Their sheet of paper, those nodes is like a global ledger, distributed globally. And the difference is that in Bitcoin network, we have like 14,000 of these people, of these nodes. So it's pretty hard to threaten them, to collude, to bribe them, because there's many of them. And these nodes in the Bitcoin network, they're staying in synchronization. They're trying to maintain this ledger as having this shared common view of the reality. And they are staying in consensus. So they are trying to work according to the set of predefined rules. Bitcoin network is open, meaning that those rules are like code is open source. You can audit those rules. Everyone knows what the rules for the network to operate are. Network is public, meaning that everyone can be part of this table. You can at any time run your own node and be part of this network. It is transparent, so you don't have to be at the table in order to review this transaction, to have a look at the ledger. Everything in the network is visible, which is both an advantage and disadvantages. So it's not perfect for everything, but it's good for many things. I'll cover that in a while. It is censorship resistant because, as I've said, you will not overwrite the history. Once it's in the ledger, it's extremely difficult to overwrite the history. And it's decentralized because we have like 14,000 of public nodes and probably twice as much nodes which are not visible to public around the world, both run by individuals, institutions, who knows, maybe even nation states. For sure, corporations are running these nodes. Many people are building businesses around Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is obviously operating this consensus where nodes know exactly the rules. Part of this rules is that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins, BTC, which is the native currency of the network, used to incentivize various parties in the network. So part of this rules is like inflation on the Bitcoin, which is decreasing every 4 years. Right now, it's around 1.8% annualized inflation. And it's divided by half every 4 years, so it will be less than 1% 3 years from now. So it's similar, inflation on Bitcoin is similar to gold. You may say on gold we are mining on average like a 2% more gold year-to-year basis. So from this perspective, if you look on Bitcoin as a network which secures the ledger, there are assets, and there is a huge community around this, you may think that Bitcoin is scarce. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. So maybe that's a good candidate for money. It's also divisible. So 1 Bitcoin, you can divide it into 100 million Satoshis. So it's pretty well divisible. It's easily to be transported. You can, if you want, you can even remember the private key or the seed phrase in your memory, and you can transport billions of assets just in your memory. But obviously you can do it with your mobile phone, with the hardware wallet, etc. I would say that the Bitcoin, just coming back to those characteristics, it's fungible. So 1 Bitcoin is equal to another Bitcoin. It's durable. The network, you cannot destroy it. It has been operational for 13 years. It might have some issues with cognizability, so it's not yet very well recognized as a global standard, but we are working on it. So obviously the adoption is growing, and right now we have like 33 millions of addresses with Bitcoin balance greater than $1. So I think Bitcoin is a good candidate for money. Okay, you may ask yourself a question. So why would central banks give up their power to control monetary supply, print money? I mean, that's unnatural, right? It's a good question. I mean, but there are already examples of El Salvador who've approved Bitcoin to become a legal tender in Salvador. Just recently, it was September 7th. So in El Salvador, prices of all goods and services should be expressed in Bitcoins instead of, or maybe not instead, but on top of dollars. So you should be able to see prices of dollars in dollars and Bitcoins, and you must be able to pay with Bitcoin at every retail store and every shop, etc. So there are all the examples that even nation states are adopting Bitcoin. And start small, grow big, who knows, maybe bigger economies will go that path as well. But even if not for like nation states, maybe not let's forget about this concept that Bitcoin will become the global reserve currency one day. Maybe, but I wouldn't bet on it too much. Central banks are working on their central bank digital currency, CBDC, which, by the way, is a scary and horrible concept most cases. But that's, again, different story. So even not that, then Bitcoin still has a chance to become a part of the digital world, of our internet. And it's pretty natural for the internet to have its currency. And what you can see on the screen, on the left side of the screen, is this guy is Wim Cerf, co-inventor of the TCP/IP protocol. In the middle is Bob Kahn, again, a second co-inventor of the TCP protocol. So they are the co-creators of what we know as the internet today. I don't know the guy on the right side, but I think he's somebody important and famous. Anyway, so these guys invented the internet. I mean, it started as DARPANET. It had like 4 nodes, few users, and the internet in its design was supposed to just transport messages from one part of the world to the other. It started with the universities. And you couldn't have predicted the revolution it will cause just next 20, 30 years from now. All this, cloud computing, storage, e-commerce, AI, social media, that was unpredictable back then. And those are not my words. I'm just repeating. I've watched many presentations of these guys. So Wynne and Bob, and also Bob Metcalf, who also engaged at some point, talking lessons learned from the internet. And the internet, obviously, from this perspective, where it is today, has some flaws. How it was designed, I mean, the protocols could have been designed different way to become more secure, to provide better quality on service, but also due to this whole commercial stuff happening on the internet today, it should have better economics. It should have some kind of economics included, part of the fabric, part of the protocol. But again, that was an experiment and nobody could have predicted where it goes. So from 4 nodes, we have 25 nodes in 73. In 1999, we already had million nodes, million machines, and 250 million users. And today, who knows? I mean, we have like nearly 70% of the world using the internet, and it's still growing. And due to IoT and digital revolution, I think we have like billions of machines as well connected to the internet and still counting. So because of lack of this native currency in the internet, and I'm repeating words of one of these guys, we kind of end up with a situation where companies who wanted to build something interesting in the internet come up with this beautiful way of monetizing their efforts by collecting information about us. So 80% of the internet infrastructure right now is in the hands of like a few giant companies, and they are collecting everything about us, like what we like, what we don't like, how we query internet, where we have been. They're collecting information from our mobile phones, from our browsers, from our application. Though they know everything, they know us much better than ourselves. And they're either selling this data to their customers or they're targeting ads to us, which is also not a pleasant place to be, right? So, I mean, we have a lot of great stuff happening in the internet these days, but if something is for free, you are the product. And a lot of things for free today. So could have this been done differently? I think if we had these economics built into this fabric of internet, the situation could be pretty much different. So right now, we are in this unique chance to rebuild the internet with these decentralized networks. And Bitcoin is just one example. We have other networks like Ethereum, Cardano, and other very interesting projects in the space. We could run applications on top of these networks. Those networks have their native currencies. They have their tokens. So we have tokenomics. We have the economics model kind of inherently part of the architecture of these networks. So back to the future, maybe that's a chance. We are very early with this, and we could come up with something cool, new internet, and maybe even on top of Bitcoin. That's my belief. And let's focus for a while on this aspect. And for many people, I mean, this will be for people who are already in this, familiar with Bitcoin, etc. It's like they know that Bitcoin is not programmable. They know Bitcoin is slow. They know Bitcoin is volatile. it's expensive in transaction, and it's not green, it's consuming a lot of electricity, and you cannot program advanced on Bitcoin because it's the simplest scripting language. So there are many platforms. I've mentioned some of them like Polkadot, Cardano, Algorand, Ethereum, obviously, Cosmos, a lot of interesting platforms trying to be either a better Bitcoin or enhance it with programmability or provide faster transaction, etc. They are very interesting. I do wish them well. They are pretty often collaborating. I'll talk this in a while. But I also believe that Bitcoin with friends can be fundamental leisure for the future of a decentralized internet. And actually, Bitcoin is the most valuable asset. So right now, the capitalization of Bitcoin exceeded $1 trillion. I think today is like $1.2 trillion. So Bitcoin with friends, and again, there are many friends of Bitcoin in terms of platforms like Liquid or Lightning. I'll focus on Stacks and Rootstock, RSK, which are addressing the weaknesses of Bitcoin, but still accepting Bitcoin as the underlying security ledger. And they're doing this differently. So with Stacks, it's like a layer 1 solution, which anchors to Bitcoin with its proof of transfer protocol. Stacks came up with this interesting clarity language, which is like a from the scratch written language, decidable, transparent, kind of what you see is what you get language. On the other hand, like Rootstock came up with a bit different approach. So they are sidechain, they are merge mining to Bitcoin, so they use the same miners, so the same security team from Bitcoin to secure their network. And they adopted from Ethereum, smart contract, virtual machine, and programming language. So different approaches, but something in common. They do not want to create new Bitcoin. They accepted Bitcoin as the most secure ledger, most secure network right now. And that's a true statement. Bitcoin is like way much securer than any of the other networks. Bitcoin is a digital gold, and assuming that Bitcoin already burned a lot of electricity and power to secure the network, doesn't make sense to build it from the scratch. Let's take it and let's try to build something on top of it. And hundreds and thousands of applications are appearing in the decentralized world ecosystem. I'm not talking only Bitcoin, but Rootstock, let's take one example from Rootstock. There is a very interesting application, Sovereign, which is built on top of Rootstock, so it's secured although by Bitcoin. And Sovereign provides decentralized finance for Bitcoin ecosystem. And it's being used by Bitcoiners, but it's also has a potential, and actually it's announced that El Salvador is also using Bitcoin to expand what's possible for Salvadorians in terms of financial products. So you may think about Sovereign as your bank, but without the bank. Instead of the bank, you have like a smart contract, so there are programs, and you still have the same functionalities like lending, borrowing, you can transact, you can take loans, you can even launch your own coins on top of this. Sovereign vision is to become like a financial operating system for the Bitcoin world and for the cryptocurrency world. And they are pretty like a well-equipped team to achieve this goal. So we are building decentralized bank, decentralized financial ecosystem where you don't need intermediary to be able to have a loan or to be able to get yield on your assets. And again, that's one example, a promising one. I'm following this project particularly, but there are hundreds of other interesting projects on top of Ethereum and other platforms. Another example from like the real world, and that's from Stack. It is like Stacks, again, built on top of Bitcoin, anchored to Bitcoin, secured by Bitcoin. And there's an interesting project called City Coins, where the governors of the cities can issue their coins to expand their budget. And that's already happening. So governors of city of Miami, so Mayor Suarez, again, a pretty new story from like 3 months ago, or maybe 2 months ago, approved Miami coin as the official expansion for the city of Miami of their budget. So they are funding enterprises in the city. They are funding everything what is important for the city growth. And it starts to become like a tangible budget counted in millions of dollars. It encourages people, the citizens, and everyone who is like in the same team like Miami, wants to like move there maybe one day, can support this city, can mine the coin. This adds the value to the city and adds also the value to the miners of somebody who participates in securing the Miami coin network built on stacks. And Miami can get thousands of utilities, so you can have like free Wi-Fi access, you can have some discounts in the city. Imagination is the limit what you can do with the coin. I'm actually a great fan of a concept city as a platform, where role of the cities in the future will be growing, because you can do much more in the micro scale than in the macro scale. You can sense problems faster and can address them more directly. So more cities on the roadmap, maybe San Francisco, maybe others who know, maybe Krakow, maybe Warsaw. Sky is the limit. We are experimenting with Miami, and that's officially supported by the Miami, which is, by the way, very pro-crypto. Florida in general is very pro-crypto. So a lot of interesting stuff is possible, not only on top of Bitcoin. Those were just two examples from the Bitcoin. But Polkadot, Ethereum, Algorand, Stacks, Cosmos, Cardano, and there are plenty of those platforms. They have hundreds, if not thousands in cases, applications which are built on top of their open, public, decentralized ledgers, decentralized networks. So we are building a whole new internet here. We are building the social media, cloud computing, storage, banking, everything what you have in the current internet is possible on top of this new internet. And I know for some of you, again, coming back to unlearn and relearn, we have this internet is beautiful. It has some flaws, but are we on the road to build a new internet? Some people will call it like a Web3, internet of trust. I like to call it internet of value, being the internet built on top of these networks. So these networks, they are collaborating, they are bridging to Bitcoin, they are bridging to themselves, they're becoming more and more interoperable. They have different approaches to building applications. We call it DApp, decentralized application, but general assumption is that they are done in the decentralized manner, secured by the community, incentivized by the tokens. They have native tokens inherited into the fabric of those ledgers. So this new internet of value, let's stick to this name for a while, which we are building on top of those open public decentralized blockchains, will have this built-in economics. So we are addressing this challenge from the old internet, the current internet, with native currencies, native tokens. It will be value driven. So all the digital assets like assets from games, or you can even tokenize real estates, you can tokenize securities on this blockchain. So the value will be on chain. This will be in the internet natively, not somewhere else. It will be secure by design because of this decentralization and cryptography, because the distribution will be more difficult to centralize the network, as we've seen with these giant GAFA companies. It's protecting our intellectual property due to, or thanks to the non-fungible assets. So imagine that today you can just copy an image and you have somebody just draw a beautiful painting and in the internet, and you can copy this, or you can copy music, and there are 2 copies or 3 copies or hundreds of copies of the same image. You are not protecting the intellectual property rights. With those networks, we have concept called non-fungible tokens, when you can really make sure that nobody will have exact copy of what you created. You will be the owner, you can transfer the ownership, etc. And this new internet of value will be much more compatible with the digital what we are creating. You don't like it or not, but there's like an internet of things all around, and those devices, machines, they will need to transact with each other. So your Tesla will be paying automatically for your highway or for your gas, etc. So you don't need to go to intermediary, which is the current central system which we use to pay for stuff. It will have like a native transaction, nano transaction happening on chain directly, and projects like IOTA and others are working on this. And hopefully this will be more fair and more user-centric internet than today, which is becoming more and more centralized. And here I come to this third point from start of my presentation. This fairer or more user-centric internet can be possible thanks to decentralized autonomous organization called as DAOs. So maybe with this we will be able to address social inequalities we have in the world today. I mean, what kind of social inequalities? Our banking system or financial institutions are extracting values from the common users up to the shareholders. Social media are extracting our data, our private personal information, and are selling this. Appearing gig economy platforms like Uber, Lyft, etc., are kind of using the work of people like average workers to extract maximum out of them. Algorithms are kind of stimulating kind of rat race. Obviously, everything is good for the customer and for the shareholders, but not necessarily for a common user. So you may say, I don't care. But everything is Uberizing these days, and maybe even IT will get into this direction. So rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. That's the situation pretty often in many areas. And I'm not talking conspiracy theories here. Actually, what you see in the screen, I wanted this to be a bit controversial, but it's like a backside of $1 US banknote. So what you see this pyramid is just have a look on the backside of $1 US banknote. You'll see this on the screen on your banknote. So can we have, with this new internet, which I've just described, with those applications, with those decentralized banking, with those decentralized social media, with those decentralized gig platforms, even decentralized cities, you can easily put here like your Miami core, San Francisco core, Kraków platform. Can we govern this better? So those networks, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polka, etc., they enable something called as DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, which is decentralizing the governance around your bank, around your social media platform, around your city, maybe even one day. Decentralizing in a way that currently, I mean, if you have a bank, it's being directed towards what's good for shareholders. But in your DeFi, decentralized finance, or your bank built thanks to DeFi, you might have the community voting what's good for everyone. So both the shareholders, both the company, but also the security providers, the common users, everyone who is a token holder, thanks to the tokenomics, can vote both on like functionalities, economical parameters of your bank, etc. Same is true for social media. You can have a decentralized governance around your social media platform in hands of the people, for the people, and by the people. So hopefully, and it's like a future, it's like not something what such solutions are obviously operational today, but for them to get effect of scale and adoption, you need time. So it's probably story for the next 10 years. And I do realize it's a bold statement to believe that, you know, on top of networks, you can build stuff like that. But that's the opportunity. So hopefully that would also help to address social inequalities, because even the common user, the client, every one of us could have a say what the bank should be doing, or what the social media platform should be doing, or should not be doing. So that's my take on this point. And I could be talking much longer here, because you know, there are thousands of those platforms and protocols. But not all of them are really interesting, in my opinion. Some are really pretending to be decentralized, some are pretending to be open, permissionless, and they are really proprietary, private, and centralized, boring platforms. So if you got interested into rejecting the current paradigms and study those open, public, decentralized platforms more deeply after this presentation, I can just give you a hint to choose wisely and sense which platforms are really, really open, public, decentralized, and permissionless. And closing statement, from Satoshi Nakamoto. By the way, I forgot to introduce Satoshi Nakamoto, who is the inventor of Bitcoin, anonymous inventor, who ever he is, he, she, or they, it's an anonymous person who, on the screen you see like one of the first public communication from Satoshi. It was January 2009. Bitcoin 0.1 released, announcing the first release of Bitcoin, a new electronic cash system that uses a peer-to-peer network to prevent double spending. It's completely decentralized with no server or no central authority. The software is still alpha and experimental. So that was like 13 years ago. And I'm learned in order to try to digest fully the potential of the technologies, what you already know about technologies, what you already know about money. Satoshi, anonymous person, creating something what is dispersed on the server, nobody owns it, no central authority. I mean, we are used to the thing that if somebody did something great, you'd just raise your hand, you'd like to be popular, right? Why would you hide? Why would you want to have something on multiple servers, not somewhere in the institution? So Satoshi triggered this initiative, and if you live according to current paradigms, you'll probably think it is something fishy. But if you reject the paradigms, you'll explore, you'll see hidden potential in these technologies, and maybe, who knows, maybe one day you will start building something on top of this. And Bitcoin today is like 33 million addresses with non-zero balance, 1 million addresses transacting daily, over $1 trillion of users, of $1 trillion of capitalization of the network, sorry, and it is still developing. So I think this experiment started 12 years ago, is going pretty well, so I think it's worth exploring. Good luck on your journey, and thank you.
Okay,
More details on my channel.
Andre0xa0, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for your talk. Huge numbers there at the end of your talk you mentioned. Just to say that cryptocurrencies are enormously volatile. They can go up and down in value in a very short time, sometimes by hundreds of percent daily. Bitcoin is at record high at around $66,000. And there's a question from the audience that we have, I think a particularly relevant one. So the question is it still profitable to buy a Bitcoin miner and start mining? So can you still make money on it, or is it too late?
Very good question. And I mean, a simple answer is that Bitcoin mining right now is, again, nearly at all-time highs. So it is profitable, but you need to know what you are doing. So you need to have access to low prices of the electricity, ideally some green electricity. You need to probably think about it as a regular business, a competitive business where you have others trying to lower their costs and upgrade their machines constantly. So it is profitable. You need to select right location and just treat it as a professional business, I guess. Then it's possible to still engage.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is it's not a job you can do on the side, outside of your regular job, just something in the afternoon or at night. Are you in the position to say that potential investors should treat that as the main full-time job?
Yeah, I think so. That there are some nuances and I'm not the miner, right? So I'm probably not the best person to tackle that. But for sure, there are places around the world, in United States, in Canada, where people mine big Bitcoin and it's profitable. Nobody is just doing this as a charity, right? So you need to have access to clear, cheap energy, and then and so you need to have access to clear energy, good equipment, good team, and not do it as a side job. I mean, you will not mine Bitcoin with your PC anymore, right? So you need like ASICs, which are expensive, and professional machines to mine Bitcoin.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for this answer. And I think we've got just one more question from our audience, and it says, governments and banks are printing money to let people feel wealthy. Printed money, inflation, Bitcoin may show that really is worse than we tell you. So aren't governments fighting with Bitcoin is the question.
So right now, it's a very good question. Right now, in various countries, you see regulators not ignoring Bitcoin anymore. So because of like its capitalization, the network is worth $1 trillion. So it's like 1/10 of the gold market cap. So it's not omittable anymore. So regulators around the world are trying to put some rules on the companies which are engaged either in mining or in providing services in order for have an influence what's happening in this space. So for sure, you'll see a lot of focus on KYC, so know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering, transparency in how the companies are operating. So I don't think, I mean, there are some countries like China who recently banned Bitcoin again. So some countries are very strong or coming up with their own digital currencies. So in China, we have this prototype of yuan on blockchain. So they will be fighting currencies like Bitcoin and banning it. But economies like United States, I think, are looking on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as the future. We've heard Gary Gensler, who is the chairman of Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States, saying that it is the future of finance. We just need to regulate it. We just need to understand it. So it's like a good for an average person. So it's not like a small animal you can you can pretend it's not existent. It will be regulated, in my opinion, as any other class of assets.
Okay, brilliant. Andrzej0xa0, thank you very much for your insights and for your perspectives.